No, appreciate you joining me, man.
Sure.
I call it the loft. We're in the loft, obviously brick and loft, right?
All right.
So
All
welcome to
right.
the loft.
Okay.
We're building,
We're in the loft of the
relationships.
brick and loft.
Exactly. And we're building it brick by brick.
I love
It's
it.
a slogan that I came up with. I loved it. I put it down on my shirt. People are like, dang, that's dope. I'm like, yeah, I know. Building the community brick by brick, like you would a house.
Right.
Right? So appreciate you coming,
Yeah.
bro. Good to
Yeah.
see you. Good to
It's
have
been,
you on here.
I mean, this is probably the only way we're going to get together. We've tried it a few times.
I know. Yeah, I know. I see all these other people that put these shows together, like Rogan and I can't remember the other guy's name that puts out his podcast, but I swear they do it like one a day.
Yeah.
Like, how does the guy find the time? But I guess he kind of
I don't
leans
know.
into that all the time. I
Sure.
guess that's his main thing, right?
It's probably something just like rather than us going to coffee or going to lunch or whatever, it's like just come hit the pod and
Yeah,
like
screw
like
those things.
create content. Yeah, let's I guess that would actually be counterproductive. That's the whole idea of like don't create real relationships, just make sure you're creating content at all
Yeah,
times.
yeah, exactly. Just always have a camera. Like, it doesn't make any sense to go hang out in the real world. We need
Right.
to have it always filmed
Uh-huh.
and recorded
Yeah.
so that people don't miss a single thing that we say, because ultimately what we say, I believe, is gold. I believe that we have
Always.
a lot to give,
Yeah.
in the humblest way possible.
Yeah.
I think we have a lot to give people.
I think that's true. I think there's a lot of value in the real stuff, when people are being real. But I guess that would also start a conversation about whether or not anybody's real at any time and what filters are we putting on when we get in front of the camera, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Sounds like that's apart from what we've talked about. That's your mission with this, or one of.
yeah, just to bring the truth to people. And I love having people that are like you, that are strong men that are developed in their business. Strong women's fine too. I haven't
Right.
had one on here yet.
Yeah.
But somebody that's just developed in their craft and their career, that's growing, that understands it's not like a get rich quick scheme,
Yeah.
and just going over like business, obviously real estate, investing, faith, those kind of things I think are so important. And they all intertwine, they all parallel each other. And I think
They
people
do.
miss that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest lies that people are told is that that your whole life doesn't weave together, and that you have these different compartments. You have this business side of you, you have this home life, you have these separate things, and they're intended to be separate. They're not. Like everything blends together. Everything should work in harmony. This idea of balance is the stupidest thing I've ever heard, at least. I don't know. Do you have a good work-life balance?
Work-life balance.
Yeah.
It's more of like, it's like your work. Oh crap, I need to go back to my personal life. The balance is hard.
It is.
It's so hard.
I hate the word. Like balance to me, and I've said this before, is just like that sounds strenuous. Like balance just infers work.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think that you talked about, a lot of people talk about the 4 pillars, they put the 4 F's out there: faith, family, finance, and fitness, right?
Yeah.
And how those all blend together. They do, and they should. And I think the most successful people in the world focus on all of those things at all times, right? Instead of just, I don't know.
Yeah, giving attention to each one, and different, and they're not all, none of them are the same approach.
Right.
You got to give each one different approach. Like business is very, you can be very strategic and very time consuming, and some other ones just come more naturally. Like your faith is just sometimes just giving time to like sit in emptiness, sit in space, and like, pray or have your moment with the Lord, or do your reading. But it's not as intensive. For business can be very cutthroat, and
right.
It takes a different type of approach.
Takes a different approach, maybe a different side of the brain. But the more and more that the more that I've gone through challenge in business, and learned all the wrong ways to do so. So I appreciate you saying that I'm strong. I appreciate you say that I have any level of accomplishment, because I don't know that I do. At least I don't view it that way. But if I've learned anything, it's that it all goes together. You got to have it all.
Well, like Drake says, it's lonely at the top sometimes, right? If you feel like there's nobody around you in your space, and you're like, man, they say one of the main keys of an entrepreneur. Tell me this. Do you feel on a day-to-day basis like you're behind and you're trying to get to a certain place? You're like, man, I didn't accomplish enough today, or like I'm not exactly where I wanted to be. Like, you feel like you're behind. You're trying to always grow.
Yes, I mean that is like that is an everyday, all the time. Where am I now? It's so funny. I was talking to my team about this the other day. Like, I find myself frequently at milestones, whether it's birthdays or maybe I'm traveling to a city or somewhere that I haven't been to in a while. I find myself like looking through photos on my phone of the last time I was there, or where was I a year ago? Where was I 3 years ago? And some of that may be just nostalgia and
Yeah.
curiosity, but actually I think for me it's deeper. It's where was I? If I can see a photo of myself a year ago or 2 years ago, where was I financially? Where was
Mhm.
I spiritually? Where was I health wise? And like I'm constantly evaluating, have I made enough
Mm.
headway?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all the time.
So
It's all
you're
the time.
literally not only you're comparing yourself to those around you, but you're also competing with your past self.
Oh, that's my
You're
worst
comparing yourself.
nightmare.
You're like, man, I've gained a little weight since last time I saw.
Yes,
You're like, I need to get on the treadmill, and
dude.
it's like,
I have looked at photos of like, cause so you've heard of the fitness challenge. They call it a challenge. It's really not, but 75 hard. It's a
yeah,
mental fortitude.
heard of it, haven't done it.
Yeah. So you've heard of it,
Yeah.
but my point is I've gone back and looked at those photos.
Have you done it?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I
okay.
did the full,
Last year.
yeah, I did live hard. So 75 hard is actually just the first phase of the live hard program, which is a full year. And so you don't do all
Okay.
the things for the full year, but there's a cycle of things. But the point is, I've gone back in those photos and I'm like, I'm way too lean in that photo there
Yeah.
from a year ago. And here's where I look today. Like, I got to get back on it.
So 75 hard is that where you give up sugar for like 3 months, or is that like is it a workout program?
It's well, just as my mentor, one of my mentors who started the program would say, it's a mental fortitude program. It is a program for mental toughness. It is, for me,
Mm.
it was the ultimate way that I learned factually that what my mind says goes, not what my body says, not what the economy says, not what the weather says. It's a way to build mental fortitude. And so 75 hard in a nutshell is there's 5 things that you complete every single day for 75 days straight
Okay.
without fail. If you do fail, you don't get to just like start back over. You go all the way to day one and start over again.
Dang.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's and a part of it is 2 workouts a day, 45 minutes, one
Okay.
outside and one inside. And so that's where the beauty of it comes in, is like there's going to be times where you've got to do your outdoor workout and it's snowing, or you got to do your outdoor workout and it's raining,
Yeah.
like just coming at you. But those are
Okay.
also like, and so, the world doesn't shape to us. And I think that's a problem with a lot of society today, is we think that things should happen the way we want them to.
Mm.
But that's not how life and the world works. Like, there's going to be days we don't want to work.
Oh yeah.
There's going to be days where we ran out of time, but the job's still got to get done.
That's where I tell people that's where you make the most success anyway. Is when you do the things. Number one, you've probably heard do the things that other people don't want to do. Right? There's better
Right.
than that. And also do things or do something. I always tell people to do something, but do it when other people are slacking off or taking time.
Mhm.
There's always a slow season in any business. I talk about sales all the time because I'm in sales, but
Right.
I've made a good chunk of money for my year in the time that everybody else is vacationing or taking off for the holidays in
Yeah.
the winter. Hey, it gets slower. Might as well just chill at home and not work as hard.
Well,
And it's like, no, that's
and the
that's
calls
when
you
you
don't
got
want
to
to make, right?
get your butt in gear. What?
Yeah. How many times have you like made the sale, closed the deal when you either A, made the call you didn't want to make,
Oh yeah.
like I'm tired, I'm worn out, or gosh, this client is a pain in the ass, but you make the call.
Yeah. I mean, time and time again.
Yep.
And people are, it's even funny because the client will be like, yeah, nobody's called me on this. I was trying to get a hold of somebody. And I'm
Yeah.
like, and even then, like my attitude, I swear it's like before, I'm sitting there and I'm like, it's one of these. And I'm like, I get my phone and I'm like, do I want to? You have that
Yep.
mental, like, am I going to do it? The little angel's like, yeah, call him. And the other guy's
Yeah.
like, no, I'll go home and like watch Netflix. So I'm like, okay, like what do I want to do? And I'm finally like, okay. And I call him and it's just ringing. And I'm like, this. And then all of a sudden he answers and I'm like, hello.
And you're at it.
But it's like,
Yeah.
don't let them know you're pissed off or like you're tired or
That this is not the call.
because it can eat into the phone. I've had some calls. I'm like, hello, and they're like, yeah, I'm just trying to place an offer on this property here, and it's 400,000. And I'm like, oh, hello, hey, I'm like, crap, I should have answered the phone like that,
Yeah.
and I like beat myself over the head.
I'm just convinced, and I've got a fair enough, body of proof of this, that you said it, our biggest successes occur in those situations. I think not only our biggest successes, I think the bulk of our success happens when we're doing that one more.
Hmm.
Like, I can't tell you how many times it's been like that one more phone call, the one more email that I did. I know that's cliche because Ed Milet has written a book on it, and there's a whole
Yeah.
one more, mantra out there. But maybe it's mantra, maybe it's cliche because it's true. Like, it's always that last push that makes the difference.
Oh yeah, 100%. And you're probably used to speaking of push. You're a business owner, so you own
Yep.
I don't even know. Do you own multiple businesses? I know you did. You had some business before. You've done roofing. You've done.
Yeah.
You still have the roofing company. You've got your management company where you manage property.
Yeah.
You're in multiple states. You're doing all these big things. And something recently we went over is it's not like you just like walked into that overnight. People are like, "Oh man, he's so lucky to have all these
Yeah.
things and make money." And it's like, well, they didn't see the time and the effort and the extra work put in behind the scenes to get there.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important for people to understand, like, number one, like, why should they even listen to us? They've heard a little bit of my story, but
Yeah.
like, I know that they need to gain value from you and what you say, but give us a little bit of background of like, where you come from. Obviously like an elevator maybe speech of like where you've come from in your past life to now, and how
Yeah.
you got kind of involved in business and why you chose to go the entrepreneur route versus working at a superstore or something for the rest of your career.
Yeah. I mean, if you want me to answer the question, like, why should somebody listen to me?
Yeah. Yeah. Like who are you? Like why,
Well, you should,
what's your platform?
because I've screwed everything up. Like, first of all, like, that's the number one reason.
Okay.
I am a,
Good.
I was a child it was spoken into me for the most part that I could have anything I wanted. I could do anything I wanted. I was smart. I was special. I was all these things, even
You
though,
still believe that?
no, not most days,
Yeah, I
but
want the NBA so bad.
yeah,
No matter how bad I wanted it, there's nothing that I could have done in my
to
course
have
of
gotten
life
there.
to have gotten there. I could have trained more than anybody else in the entire
Yeah.
history of the world, and I still would not have been NBA.
Yeah. I think in some regards, yeah, there was some truth in that, but obviously I kind of make that comment in jest because it's not always the truth. We, we can do everything that God intended for us to do.
Hmm.
So God obviously didn't intend for you to be an NBA
Yeah,
player. I don't know if you know that.
I complain all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
You have that conversation with
yeah, all the time, all the time. Like what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for me, all those things were spoken to me, and
Okay.
I had a very, I guess, either a high level of risk tolerance or didn't think I could screw up.
Mhm.
So when I came out of the box, I was swinging when it came to
Yeah.
business. I was blessed from a standpoint of my parents. They worked 9 to 5 jobs, and I saw them make this transition towards an entrepreneurial style. At least they moved into sales. They moved from, my mom was a dental hygienist. My dad worked for what would be the equivalent of the utility company on the electrical side.
Okay.
I watched them move into a sales world to where they took at least some control of their financial being and their life. And I was inspired by that. To see two
Mhm.
people make that transition was a big deal. Now, what people need to understand more and more is that sales, being a good salesman, is not an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Right? And this idea, and don't
Mhm.
get me wrong, I don't want to discourage anybody from being an entrepreneur, but this idea that everybody's an entrepreneur is not true. Like,
Yeah.
it's just not
Yeah.
true,
Yeah.
And I think that quite frankly, there's people in my organization in sales and in administration that make more than me. An intrapreneur, somebody who loves the business, who's working for somebody they trust and love, and doesn't have to bear the burden of everything. Oftentimes, like,
Yeah.
they seem like they get out a little
Entrepreneur.
bit better.
Okay. Is that a real word?
I think so.
Okay. So you just make up a new
I'm
word.
not.
I've never heard that, but I'm going to steal that.
I'm not sure.
I'll
I
start
think
telling
it is.
people that they're like, I can't, I've been an entrepreneur. I'm like, no, you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and I don't mean to, like, I don't want to, like,
Yeah, it's not
digress from
derogatory.
the story, but at the same time, like, I do think this facade that's put out on Instagram that, yeah, you've alluded to it. You start a business, things start to hit, it's easy. No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's dark and it's scary and it's hard and it's worth it if you're demented like us.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And it takes the blood, sweat, and tears people don't see. And it's, yeah, what you've built is, I think, is awesome. And I think that you've been a good role model for so many people to follow, which is why I wanted to bring you on here, because my
No, I
goal is to give people
appreciate that.
value.
Yeah.
I think that there's so little value given up front, and it's always like, pay for this, pay for that, like,
Yeah.
follow my program, do this, and it's all these things fall into it, and you don't ever get the information you need. It's like we could just lead them on the whole time. Like, look, the 5 key things you need for an entrepreneur and to start your own business and have a 7-figure income.
Yeah.
If you subscribe right now,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah, that's it.
you spend $1,000, and I'm literally telling you, I'm an entrepreneur making 7 figures because you just bought that $1,000 lane, right? It's like, but the value is probably something you could Google or find on the internet.
Isn't it? It's
Why?
it's horrible. And one of the first guys that I paid to be in his inner circle. Um, I look at him now, 10 years, 15 years later, and I can, hindsight being 2020, clearly seen he's never built anything.
Mm.
He's built a sales organization that sells you,
Sales,
I don't know,
sales.
on how to do something he's never done. And it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's
It's
everywhere.
wild. But and there are people, I understand like time is valuable and like knowledge is power. And there are people that I think it is worth paying to hear from them for their knowledge. But there's just so many
Yeah.
copycats of people that
Yeah.
aren't, like you said, aren't living and aren't doing it. And then having you pay for something that they haven't lived or done versus finding somebody that like has done both.
Yeah.
And then actually getting the experience back, because experience trumps everything.
Yeah. And the truth is, like, everybody's way of doing it is going to be different. And those who actually hit it and those who are actually successful are the ones who find to do it in their own authentic way.
Hmm.
And that was my journey. And that was like the biggest failure I could say was like, I wanted what I saw other business owners and entrepreneurs had. So I tried to mimic
Hmm.
them, mimic the way they acted, mimic their marketing, mimic their systems, their processes, all before I really discovered who I was and who I wanted the business to be. So you you act out this facade, this thing that's not you. I spent 10 plus years chasing a few different versions of success purely for the success. And I hit roadblock after roadblock, not just like from a standpoint of we weren't growing the way I wanted to, financial roadblocks, severe financial pain.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until I'll be honest with you, the last couple of years that God's got a hold of me in some pretty amazing ways that I've been able to zone in on more of a relational style of leadership, recognize that entrepreneurship is definitely not all about money. It's
Yeah.
not all about the thing you
Good.
build, it's
That's
about
good.
the people, you
Yeah.
know? And you know what? You grabbed me 15 years ago and say that to me, I'd be like, whatever.
Yeah.
I
Like,
wouldn't I
get the
wouldn't
heck
listen
out
to
of
them.
my house. Yeah.
I wouldn't have listened. And
Yeah.
and I also wouldn't have listened to somebody say, it takes time and you're going to find yourself balled up in the floor crying and you're going to be terrified and you're not going to think you're going to be able to pay your mortgage. And, I would have sat there and in fact, I did have people tell me that.
Hmm.
But for whatever reason, we hear people tell us that something's going to be hard. Why don't we believe it?
I'm notorious for learning things the hard way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've learned everything in my life the hard way. And it's like, I felt like, I almost tell people like fade my choices in life, right? Like you're fade the bet, right? And that people are placing a
Yeah.
bet on a game or something. Like,
Yeah.
I swear if you faded me, you'd be a multimillionaire. And it's like same thing in life. Like in the beginning of like all the decisions that I made, I was like, I'm gonna try this because I've never done this before. And it's like, fade me, do the opposite.
Yeah.
But I've learned. I think that you almost paid. We call it like learning lessons, right? And lessons aren't cheap. So
Yeah.
you're paying for the experience. You're paying for that lesson and that schooling.
Yeah. I still got, so like what from a previous business of mine that I've rolled up and shut down, there's still monthly payments that have to go out on some old debt, which I don't mind saying. Like,
Yeah.
but I've begun to refer to those as my student loans. Like,
So in other words, you had a business that you were running, you closed it down, and there was some stuff that was still latent that was behind
Yeah.
that you're still paying on.
yes, to this day.
And so it's like it's like that. It's like sitting on your shelf, and every morning you see it, and you're like,
Yeah.
not doing that again.
Yep. And I used to call it, I changed the language around it, and some of it was just to be comical about it, but it's the truth. Like I used to call it past due debts. Like, hey, where are we at on paying off the long-term debt of the past due debts? We got everything straight when I'm talking to accounting. And now I've called it my student loans because it's just a little bit more powerful for me to realize, like, here's the thing, no, scratch that. I gotta be careful because I was feeling myself for a
That's all right. Feel it.
But with the property management company specifically, a lot of the tools and even some of the stuff I shared with you recently,
Mhm.
the processes, the way that I knew how to implement and execute when I took that beast on, I learned through 6 or 7 years of trying to build that one business that is now wound up that I'm paying those student loans on. So like my education on different ways to handle mass call volume, different ways to handle large volume of cases like customer issues and things like that. it came from that business. So while that business is shut down and I'm having to pay off some of the student loans over there, it was truly an education. That's what gave us the ability to do what we did with the property management company.
And it's funny how life works, where you literally but you learn from
Mm-hmm.
a mistake, and you were able to build and grow from that. Because
Yeah,
so many people take it as they could take it as, they'd be like, I failed and I quit, versus, okay, like, where did I mess up? Let's learn from that. Now let's go re-implement. So many
yeah,
people stop right there when they have
they do.
just when that first failure. They go out of business. Oh, it just wasn't for me. I can't do this. You start getting the self deprivation. The enemy starts working against
Yep.
your mind and your soul, and then you become burden to other people, and you bring other people down. Then you become that, just like Eeyore, that mopey person.
Yeah.
And back in the day, man, I could have done this, or the woulda, coulda, shoulda guy.
What do you think the separator is there? Like, what's the difference in the people that don't quit and do?
I think or lately too, I think that what separates people is the company you keep. It's so important to
Yeah.
keep the right company, because if you're around people that win and people that are trying to be successful and change their lives, like you just met Cedric, like, people are trying to grow something, and they may not have a lot, but they're still trying to turn 1 to 2 and 2 to 4 and 4 to 8.
Yeah.
And, like, people are trying to grow and build, and they have the hustle, and they may stumble, but they're willing to keep going. They believe in you. They believe in themselves. So
Yeah.
if you keep that type of company, you will be successful. Because they said, I've been listening to Ramsey a lot, and they said that, your income is going to reflect within, I think it was like 75 or 80% of
Of
the
the
five
people.
most people that you spend your time with.
Yeah.
So if
And
you're hanging
and
around large net earners,
mm-hmm.
chances are your income will end up matching theirs or be very close to, because they either bring you up, you get an idea, they help you out, whatever, but you're going to start bringing your income up.
Yeah, they pull your identity up, right? That's that idea of your identity being like a thermostat, right? Like, and when you're around other people, they heat you up.
Yeah.
I think that, as you say that, that's true. I mean, not only people of income, people of success, of relationship. It's like you couldn't hang out with a preacher, 6 days a week, 5 hours a day, and not get closer to God.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to happen, right?
Yep.
But so few people are intentional, and that kind of helps me check
Intentionality.
myself. Like, I need to be intentional about that.
Yeah. So huge.
But in my darkest days, I would say, outside of God and being drawn to Him, and Him really, like I say, getting a hold of me, um, it was people who had either reached the level of success that I was going for, or they were in it too and they weren't giving up, which I guess is the same thing, and they were willing to share. Because so few people will be real with you and say, oh yeah, you're going through that financially, you're going through that with your spouse. I'm going through the same thing right now, and here's what I'm doing about it.
Yeah.
It's very rare you meet people like that.
Yeah, people that open up their life to you. And I think some of the reason that people don't have that type of relationship with somebody too is they don't ask. People are so afraid to go
Yeah.
deeper conversations with people. You're in the TikTok, the Instagram world, where you scroll, you get something surface level, you get something quick. If it's not 15 seconds, you're out. And it's like, you start sitting down with somebody, start talking to them, and half the people that, if there's anybody around them, they don't want to talk to them at all, right? They have the mindset of like, don't talk to anybody. Like, hopefully nobody sees me.
Yeah.
Versus like looking for opportunity. You start talking to somebody, and then instead of asking like, how are you? Good, I'm fine. Oh, good, me too. A little tired. I'm tired too. Great. Have a good day. It's like, like asking people like, hey, how are you? And they're like, I'm fine. I'm like, no, really, like, how are you doing? Like, how's life? Is your family okay? And then all of a sudden you see people change, and they like start telling you about what's actually going on, and you really can learn from people that way.
Is that something like you've got a habit of that?
Yeah, I would say not because I'm super special, but because I'm just a golden retriever sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Just able to, I'm not afraid to have conversation and approach people and talk to people about different things going on, or like whatever I want to learn about them, or if I like see somebody that's interesting, or honestly, I'll be in like line at like a long, I don't know, restaurant line, and I'm kind of bored.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, what are you gonna get? Start talking conversation like that. I've sold a house. I was in line at Chop Chop, and there was like 4 people in front of me, and I started talking to the guy in front of me, and he's like, well, I'm about to sell my house, but. And I was like, no way. I started talking because I was like getting in depth with him. Next thing you know, he's like, yeah. And I started talking about the faith and the Lord. And the next day he texted me and said, I prayed about it, and the Lord kind of put on my heart that maybe you should help me to this other person.
Yeah.
I was like, perfect.
You know, I think
doing business at Chop Chop.
That's right.
Yeah, and clothes like this. You know.
Yeah, I joked with you before we started. Like I'm in my shortest of shorts today.
That's all right.
I got these on me, but yeah, that's where
shorts make big decisions.
Right. That's where I'm at.
I just made that up.
I like it.
Yeah, I'm gonna use
it.
Statement.
That's where I'm at though, with like just being your authentic self, and I think that that could be an overused thing because oftentimes I don't think people know who their authentic self is. I don't think they do the work to find that out. But I want to comment on that. Like you're right. There are a lot of lonely people out there who they just want to be heard. They want to be seen. In fact, I was talking to somebody at a funeral just earlier this week, an old man. He's in his 80s. He's got cancer himself, and I walked up, the typical Southern comfort. Hey, how are you doing?
Yeah,
good to see you.
Howdy.
Yeah, and I think I said, good to see you. That typical stuff. And he looked at me square in the eye and he said, it's good to be seen. And it just like, it struck me because this is a man who knows he's going to die soon.
Dang.
And he's like, it's good to be seen. And I don't know if he purely meant that like it's good to be seen above the ground, or if he was like deeper, like it's good for somebody to see me because I'm an old man who sits in a chair who can't stand up and everybody's out there doing their thing.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting here. So it's nice for somebody to stop and talk to me. And I was like, there's a lot of people out there who aren't dying from cancer, who aren't older, that would just love to be seen.
Yep.
And speaking from personal experience, I was never one that saw anybody. And I think that people have to be at peace with themselves and their maker before they can see somebody else.
That's deep.
And
that's so true. And the people want everything to be easy, and you want to just like have this natural, you go to talk to people and then they're all of a sudden like friendly and opening up to you. Like, even when people are wanting to be seen, but they've had this outlook every time somebody's actually approached them in a certain way and it didn't go well, that they're kind of closed off. People don't want to put in the effort of like when they kind of get abrasive to like kind of like chip away at that little, it's a lot of times it's like a thin onion shell, right? You got to put a little bit more effort than like, oh, sorry, you're rude, and walk away. It's like sometimes you talk to people. I've had people kind of like get short with me or right off the bat on conversations, and then after I just want to talk to you and just hear about this, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, and they start opening up more. And then those are the people that don't even shut up. Once you get rolling, they're like telling you about their life and their history, and they got so much to share. And it's just because nobody's ever put in the time or the effort to actually get to hear them and to know them. Because what is it? You may be listening, but you're not hearing me. People listen all the time without hearing.
Listen to respond instead of listening to understand.
Yeah, looking without seeing.
That was me for the longest time. Like you may be talking to me, but I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to say next.
It's because people always want to talk about what they want to talk about and their things they've got going on and their greatness or their failures and all the things that they're doing. And when other people talk, they're just like, okay, what can I say next on this? And it's a hard thing to get out of, but when you really start to care just for other people and how they're doing, then it becomes second nature. It's easy.
I think that's like the highest calling on entrepreneurs. I really do. And I don't know, that's definitely not the full picture, but it's one of the highest callings for me is to help people be seen. One of my greatest mentors, one of the most incredible men I've ever met, Rick Vietenbo. He was a staple of the community here.
I knew Rick.
He used to say, people don't have to go to church, but they've got to go to work. And here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are. God has put people in our care. As a leader, God has put people in our care. So it's our job. It's a part of our calling. Yes, we got to make money. Yes, we need to add value. Yes, we're here to build things. Me and you we build things. That's what this is about.
Yeah.
But we also have people in our care, and they're people who are the same people you're talking about, who are walking around, and people in their family probably aren't even paying attention to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so many people are just I was thinking earlier when you were talking, I'd categorize as people you hear about the lost. People are just lost. They're lost spiritually. They're lost in the world. They feel like they don't have a place or a purpose.
Yeah.
And it's because they're not listening. Number one, they're not trying to find their purpose. They just want to feel like a victim, or they feel victimized. But at the end of the day, like nobody's going to care more than you, and it's a relationship between you and the Lord. And
it is
like, no, you can't have anybody else build that bridge for you, and you can't have anybody else you expect people to just bring you up.
Hmm.
Like a lot of times, you're in a situation where nobody else is going to do it for you, and you have to go out there and grind. And
Yeah.
then that's where you hear the crazy cool testimonies of people overcoming obstacles and stuff. It's usually not like, yeah, I had all these people really help me and set me up and I
Yeah.
became
It's
successful. It's
rarely
always
that.
about, you hear their story and their overcoming, and I was alone, but I had the mindset to do this. And that's what I think is missing from a lot of people, is just this mindset. I mean, you met my friend earlier, and the problems that people have in America,
Yeah.
everywhere else, people are like fighting for food and for water,
I
and we're
know.
over here like complaining about, like trying to pay bills. And he's like, talk to people from that have fought their way and finally found a way in America, and they're like, man, you don't understand. It's how hard it is there to make
Yeah.
money and to feed your family. When here, it's like, go work and make $19 at McDonald's. Like,
Right.
people just don't want to work. He's like, this is easy to like
Mm.
have a life and a living and own property and like really become like, successful in their eyes.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not hard here.
That struck me, man. That struck me when your buddy was talking about, hadn't seen his mother in 6 years
Yeah.
and was trying to get his family over here. And yeah, we drive around like zombies, man. We're like zombies. We're so distracted and so worried about all this little stuff that doesn't matter. And you've got a guy here who actually seems at more peace
Mm-hmm.
and more calm than probably even I was. My energy when I walked in the room.
You seem like a peaceful guy.
Yeah, you've seen that meme with the duck, right? Where his head's just calm and then below water.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's me.
Yeah.
That's me. But
That's good.
but anyways, he's trying to get his mother over here, his kids over here,
Yeah.
and I'm
He's
sitting
got
here.
purpose. He's got a goal. And
And
I think that's what you need.
that's going back to, and this is not a sales pitch for Andy or 75 Hard or anything like that, but I think that is one thing that many humans are missing, is some sort of goal, just something that they're working for. The ultimate, like the only way to find fulfillment, I think Jordan B. Peterson really lays this out well, is you yourself working towards an end that you see valuable. Like, it's this, we don't get happiness from getting the payday. And if we do, it's for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
We don't get the happiness. Like, if I could go back when I started in business, 15 years ago, whenever that was, 15, 18 years ago, I don't do math well. But whenever that was, and I could say, Andrew, at this point in time, you're going to be running a multi-state operation with 30 plus people involved, that's running a 35% profit, that you don't even have a lot of work that you do at your desk anymore. Your job is to meet and support people. You're going to have, you know, legal stuff you're fighting. You're going to have all these things, and it's going to be awesome. You're going to be powerful, and you're going to live in this 2-story house. You have all these things. If you would have told me that like 15 years ago, I've been like, that's the destination. I'm going to be so happy when that happens.
Mm.
I mean, everything's going to be good. I'm going to be stoked. Well, guess what? Here I am. And it's like, you don't get long-term fulfillment from those little things. You get fulfillment from working towards something you see is valuable, and that changes, right? So like, it's always got to keep moving. So my point with the 75 Hard, my point with working towards something, is that whether it's being a titan of business or just getting a little bit closer to God, like, we all need something we're working towards on a daily basis.
Fine. Yeah.
Why else you getting up?
Finding that purpose. That's good that you said that. It's so true. Of, you have this future envisionment of your life and your goals, and it's good to have goals and long-term goals. And you think you're going to be happy when you get something, or you're like, man, if I just made an extra $100,000, if I had this, or if I had this, and you get those things, and you still don't feel that feeling of completeness. And it's something that's come up multiple times with that I've been talking to people lately. And you mentioned a funeral, and I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was like, it's people don't go to the deathbed and they're not sitting there in the hospital, counting their hours and
Yeah.
man, I wish I made more money. I
Mm-hmm.
wish I would have bought that car, right? Or I
Yeah.
wish I had a bigger house. It's always, relationship based. Man, I wish I spent more time with my kids. I wish I traveled more. I wish I, loved my family more, my wife more. I wish I didn't, I
Yeah.
wish I didn't work as much,
Yeah.
because we're in a dangerous spot as entrepreneurs and with so many things going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find, fulfillment in work, but at the same time, like, I don't want to live to work. I want to, you want to
Yeah.
almost work to live, right? And so you can get kind of lost in that. So
It's such a, I felt after this funeral that I was at this week, it was like, and I was talking to my wife about it. I said I felt two almost opposing forces, two emotions, two theologies that like came to mind. Like one was at one point, none of this is going to matter. Why am I so stressed and hustling and trying to have this and that and buy more property and build a larger, financial wall around, like, why do I care? But then there was the other side of me that was like, I'll be honest, I was sizing up the room, the number of people that were at the funeral. And I
Yeah.
was like, this is a pretty good showing. But when I'm dead, I want more people there. And I want to have impacted more. And I want to have
Yeah.
created. So it's like this, it was this weird dichotomy of ideas. And I think that ultimately you're right. It's not about the necessarily the money, but if we have a gift that God's put in us, it's our job to unearth, uncover, and live that at the absolute highest level. That's what I always, teach and coach my team on with property management. We're really good at this thing. And because we're good at it, if we don't grow this thing to the absolute largest place and capacity we can, to me, that's almost slapping God in the face.
Hmm.
It's like we got to go. We got to grow.
Yeah.
You know.
But what is a good number of people at a funeral? Just curious.
I don't know. Like I don't know.
I need to know. I need to know what my goals are too. I'm like,
I
I
had
had 200 people. Is that a lot of people?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's good. I was I need to I don't
I'm having music at mine. I want to like almost like set my own funeral up as like, look, I want you to play this type of music, and I want there to be
you want
like
to be the
lights.
producer, the executive
Yeah,
producer?
I was like, I don't want it to be with the organs, and I just want it to be like a place like literally a celebratory of life where people are like pumped,
Yeah.
like be there and like, man, like you mentioned, like impact people. Um, and I think you can touch a lot of people and impact a lot of different people's lives, maybe like through social media and things that
Yeah.
when you come into contact with people, just being the light. And then there's a few people that you really work on deeply
Yes.
because it's what is it, you're more afraid of the guy who's kicked 1,000 times or 1,000 kicks, or one guy that kicked one kick 1,000 times.
Yeah.
It's like, I think that we can impact, the group that sticks and the people that we want to pour into deeply to where they can go impact
Yeah.
versus the people that just all surface level and like tap heads, like,
Yeah.
less, it's like,
That's something that I'm
we
working
get
on
real deep.
now. I struggle with it, and here we are. We're talking on a podcast now, and I think that both forms are valuable. That
Yep.
that deep connection, one on one. I over the past few years have opted to focus almost specifically on that and building that out. Um, and I think that this forum and what we're talking about here is like a part of the good, because I think there's so many podcasts and there's so many content creators that it's first of all, it's shallow what they talk about. It's all the 3 steps like you talked about, or the 10 steps to
Mhm.
success. And then the second half of it is most of the people that are putting out content now, they're not even good enough at covering up the fact that they're trying to sell you something. It's like by the third minute of whatever their pitch, they're already pitching you.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. They didn't even make it enticing enough for you to like,
yeah.
not even interested.
And you're the problem. Like, you're why everybody is so lonely. Like these people that are just out here selling. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's tough. There's yes, you want to make sure you want to pull people up like we talked about,
Mhm.
but selling a shallow version of success is like the root of evil to me.
Yeah.
I really am beginning to believe that.
To make people successful. I think at the end of the day that if you ask what your job is in the world, or, as a business owner, an entrepreneur, in the spot we're at, I think that we're supposed to, and people watching, if like, well, okay, this is, you're talking about all the, like, you don't feel like you're enough and you're always trying to grow more and all those things is kind of
Yeah.
like but if you're going the positive tone, I think that we're just called to bring people up. We're called to be the light. We're called to be truthful to people.
Yeah.
And we're really called to just bring energy and bring excitement back
Yeah.
to the business world and back to the faith, and really like show people that you can accomplish the things you want to. And there are good people out there that are really trying to help. And I think that we just need to, obviously continue to set ourselves apart from people that are trying to steer people away from the truth, and give people what,
Mhm.
tell people what the truth is. So I think that's a job and a burden that we carry,
It is.
regardless of the backlash that you receive,
Yeah.
because there will be backlash as you do a counter opposite of the world. It's like the guy that walking in the street, he's walking against, like, the streets of New York and everybody's walking this way, he's walking that way.
Yeah.
It's going to feel like that. It's not super fun. You're bumping shoulders, but at the same time, you're given to people will see the value and they'll see truth in that. And I think that nobody can take that away from you.
I mean, the most successful people in business that you've ever met, really successful, I mean, long term, they're very personable people that care about you.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the first time I met Ed Milet, and he's got a big podcast now, and we were at his home in Coeur d'Alene with a group of about 70 of us, maybe 80 of us. It was a big group, and he had this whole dinner set up on the lake and all these things, and he's this guy that I just way up to.
Yeah.
And I ran up to go to the restroom. I was up on kind of this mountain that his house is on the lake Coeur d'Alene. And I come out of the restroom, and I hadn't met him yet. He was busy. Rob Deerdeck was at the house. There were all these people there. And I was like, of course, imposter syndrome going off like crazy. I'm like, why am I here? How I'm not supposed to be here.
Say I am.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm
that's exactly right. But the point of the story is I walked out, and I'm not saying this to name drop or say I'm at Ed Milet. Like, that's not what this is. I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'm trying to impress upon the fact of what these successful people are. So I walk out of the bathroom, and I'm looking down on this where everybody's eating, and I look to my right, and Ed's right there. And just me and him, I hadn't had a chance to meet him yet. And he looks at me and he's like, "How you doing, man? What's your name?" Shake his hand.
You say your name?
Yeah, I didn't make something up. Yeah, I said, "I'm Andrew."
Make him a name?
I didn't make him a name. And he said, "Good." He's like, "How you doing?" I was like, I'm good. And I'm like, this guy's staring into my soul right now. I'm uncomfortable with the whole situation already. Like, what's happening? And I said, "I'm good, man. This is awesome. Thanks for having us out." And he says, "You mixing in with everybody? You feeling, comfortable?" And it just struck me in that moment, this man who's got, at that time, this Falcon jet, he's got this beautiful home. He's got all these things. He knows celebrities. He's got all this stuff. When he was face to face with another human, another individual who he thought was uncomfortable, because I think he thought I had stepped away to go to the bathroom because I wasn't mixing in with all the people, and he thought I was just kind of hanging back. He stopped everything to make sure I was comfortable at his home. And I think that so many people get caught up in wanting what Ed has instead of trying to be the person that Ed is, or somebody like that. Ed is a good man. He's a man of faith. He sees other people, like we talked about. And that's hard, man. That's the hard work.
Yeah.
Is caring about people.
That's good. I think as we close, I think that's a really good point to close on, is that it's a matter of caring. That's one of the most successful things, or one of the most successful tips you give anybody in business, is as long as you care about people. And I think as long as your focus necessarily isn't money, but you're just doing it because you like it. It's for a purpose. It's greater than money. And you just care about people and what you're doing for them to help benefit them.
Yep.
The more you care about people, the more you'll find success. Versus if you try to chase it and grasp it, it's like grasping water out of a faucet.
I love that analogy.
But you can't grasp it. It's right in front of you, and you don't understand why.
Yeah. And
it's like you just got to care about people. Once you care about people, it's like using a cup.
And hopefully you don't have to get brought to your knees and to the very edge like I did to realize that.
Sounds like we need another episode.
We do.
I need to know about the Andrew's past story.
Yeah.
To
get a flow chart.
The dark cloud that he had over him, that he overcame. It sounds like you got a pretty robust story, and I love stories.
Yeah, we need a dry erase board, and I'll put some flow charts together. We'll be good.
Deal. I got a dry erase board.
We'll draw it out.
Wheel it in.
Yeah,
I get it.
I love it.
Well, I appreciate you joining me, man. I appreciate your time. Your time is valuable. You've got family. So appreciate you stopping in.
Yeah.
And of course, if you guys need to connect with him, let me know. Put a message, anything like that. Subscribe if you want to see more. But we plan to continue to always
bring you part 2.
Truth.
Part 2.
This is part 1. We're gonna put it label, and we're gonna direct you to part 2 once
there you go.
So appreciate you coming in.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks.
Always good to have you, brother.
Yeah.